Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 73 of From the Van. It's a podcast from my van, where I have conversations with people who have relationships with residential vehicles. I'm your host, Marty Benson, and today's episode features Charlie Plybon. Charlie is the Oregon Policy Manager for the Surfrider Foundation, and this is a special episode to me because it's the second time since the beginning of the podcast that I've been able to shoehorn into my minimal living podcast an activist that I really look up to from the Surfrider Foundation. For those of you who don't know, the Surfrider Foundation is a coastal advocacy nonprofit that's near and dear to my heart. I've been involved with them both as a volunteer and professionally a whole lot throughout the years. And it's super interesting to me that both Charlie and Mark Massara, who's a previous episode, go back and listen to that if you feel like it. It's a wonderful one as well. Both of these guys gravitated to minimal living situations. Mark used to travel around in a van a whole lot before hashtag vanlife was a thing. And before the minimal living thing trend was a deal, and before Netflix had tiny home shows, Charlie lived on a boat. And I think it's really telling that for sustainability and environmental nonprofit, both of these guys sort of gravitated towards minimal living before it was a thing, because there's a through line in that ethic. And we get into that. We talk about Charlie's time on a boat. We talk about his advocacy and how those two things sort of informed each other, and his wanderlust for the future, and what he might be looking to do, post house ownership or house dwelling in Newport, Oregon. It was super great to hang out with him. I spent a couple of days in Newport. He made me some smoked fish, took me mountain biking. I'm super thankful. Thank you, Charlie. And also, if you, like me, are talking to people constantly about minimal living stuff, and you keep getting the same question about pooping, send those people who are asking you that question to this podcast, because Charlie didn't shy away from sharing what it was like to poop in a bucket at the end of a dock in a boat. So there's that to look forward to as well. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that you will too. This is episode 73, featuring a dude that I super admire, Charlie Plybon.
Charlie, thank you for being on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, man.
You do not live in a van.
I don't live in a van.
Why are you on this podcast, man?
I have lived on a boat before, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I
I
remember.
have, like, some little qualification.
We are in your lovely, brand new, newly built office at the bottom of your house in Newport, Oregon.
That's right. South Beach, technically, just south of Newport.
Is it a separate municipality, or is this like unincorporated county?
It's an unincorporated area, better than Newport. It's South
Better
Beach.
than Newport?
Yeah. The Shire.
Yeah, I was, so I came here a couple of days ago, because I knew you lived here. We've known each other for probably 13 or 14 years, but we probably spent 10 hours together, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
I feel like...
That'd be generous.
I actually, yeah. I haven't, I'm pretty sure that we got drunk on a trolley bus in San Francisco together in like 2008 or something like that.
There was a lot of energy on that trolley bus.
Yeah, that was so much fun, dude. So, what I was going to say is, you guys have the same attitude about going across the bridge into Newport, it seems like, that people in the Bay Area have about crossing the Bay Bridge. But when I lived in Berkeley, I could not get people from San Francisco to come and hang out with me.
Well, in Newport, it is like the people south of the bridge and the people, north of the bridge.
Yeah.
Particularly this time of year, it's just the jam and the traffic and,
Right.
But perspective, I mean, we're not in
Yeah.
San Francisco, and we're in a town of 10,000.
It does take 20 minutes to make a 5-mile drive sometimes.
Legitimately, it does. We go from like a town of 10,000 to a town of 60,000 in the summertime for tourism.
Yeah.
So
I grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, so I know exactly what that's about.
I did a few spring breaks at Myrtle Beach.
Same sort of deal. Oh, we also figured this out the other day. We were born in the same hospital.
That's right.
That's
Wesley
super weird.
Long Hospital in Greensboro, North Carolina.
I didn't even know. I had to text my mom because I never lived there. I was there for like 9 months as an infant.
Yeah.
Tell me about living on a boat, dude. Yeah, you've had this piece of property for about 15 or 16 years?
Yeah, 2006 is when I bought this. So about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Bought the property and then spent about a year and a half building it out and still building it out. Like I said, you're in the new part of the house right now. Yeah, lived on a boat. A 38-foot steel hull sailboat. It had been gutted by the former person who sailed it over from Hawaii. Really interesting cat who runs another boat in town doing like whale watching and stuff like that.
Now, still. Okay.
Yeah, and he just needed somebody to live aboard and keep the boat warm. And so that was my job. And I paid like $50 or $100 a month or something like that for
Holy crap, dude.
to live on a boat and have like the best sunset at the end of G-Dock. So it was like I could watch the sunset beneath the Yaquina Bay Bridge.
That's
for
super
about 4
cool.
months out of the year. But the one downside, they were painting the bridge when I was living there, so there was a little bit of sandblasting and stuff going on.
Oh,
but
right.
it was, a little bit romantic to live on the end of the boat.
Well, and you can't argue with $50 or $100 a month either. That's a pretty good setup for saving to buy a piece of property or
exactly
something like that.
Which is kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah.
Doing that, moving, shaking a little bit while I was on the boat.
Yeah.
And, penny pinching and figuring it out. And yeah, now I was able to leverage that to buy a piece of property.
When you said that he gutted it, what do you mean? Like, were there still, like, was there living space and stuff in there? Or what did
everything, like my cooking, like basically it was like taking a brand new van that has not been outfitted.
Like a cargo van?
Yeah, and like, putting in your platform for your bed and putting in like your little kitchen. And so I am not a craftsman builder guy, so I just kind of made it work for me, which meant like, this was pre-Instapot days, so I think it was this Foreman grill is like what was my cooking machine of choice. And then I had like a little rice steamer and a slow cooker, and that was like my entire kitchen right there, which is kind of plenty.
Yeah, you can
and
make
honestly,
things with that stuff.
Honestly, compared to a van, it was way more space. I mean, it's a 40-foot sailboat, so like there was a lot of room on the boat, but a lot less room than I'd ever been in before. So it kind of taught me to live small.
Cool. What did you use for power?
Oh, we had a landline there, so basically power at the dock.
Oh, you're right at the dock, and so you just
just a plug in.
Cool. Was it cold?
It wasn't bad. I mean, there were cold nights. The steel hull on the sailboat does not insulate well, so and the water's cold.
Right.
So, but the weather around here is not like super cold. It gets maybe in the 40s and the 50s in the wintertime.
We were talking about that earlier. It's like crazy moderated here, right? Like
super temperate. Yeah,
boiling hot day for you is like 75 degrees.
Yeah,
right?
that would be off the Richter.
Yeah,
for sure.
Wild. How did you end up in the boat? You were just like working down that way, and dude offered it to you, or?
Kinda, yeah. I was working at the Oregon Coast Aquarium at the time, and I was living in a little community called Surfland, which is just down the road from here, actually. And it was like overnight, like my roommate was moving out, my landlord was selling the house, I had to be out within like 3 weeks, and I remember just commiserating with some people at the Rogue one night, and my buddy Kevin was like, hey, you want to live on my boat? I need somebody to keep it warm. And I'm like, impulse that night just was like, yes,
definitely,
because I didn't want to look for a house. I didn't want to do with moving, and I was just like, that's easy, and it's like it's something I can do right now, and it forced me to live a certain way that I've always wanted to live. So there was the romantic idea of living on a boat, but then there was the idea of like kind of low impact, like not being a heavy footprint, and you can really be a light footprint if you're Cecil on a boat, with less than 50 square feet.
Right. And that's what you mean. It's just like transitioning into the minimal living sort of situation.
Yeah, kind of bucking the stuff a little bit.
Yeah, how did that go for you?
It was a process where everything went into storage and then sat in storage for a year, and I paid for it for a year, and then was like, what? All this shit that I don't need. So I got rid of it. That was kind of...
That's a very common story, I think.
That's kind of how it works.
I'm the guy...
I'm not smart enough to have the foresight to be like, get rid of it.
I did it too, dude.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to like living in a van, and so I had, for like 9 months, I was paying $100, and I was like, damn, I just spent $1,000 on keeping stuff that I don't need, you know, and I got really frustrated with myself for it. And now I like preach to people, like, get rid of your storage unit, because you don't need that crap. But
you think about when you buy it, that's the key, is like trying to figure it out. Like when you buy the item, like what's the lifespan? Where's the place?
Yeah.
How long will it be with you?
Yeah. Do you feel like you've carried that through? I know that you've sort of, like, in the last couple of days told me you're like, my house is getting too big, because you've added on to it a couple of times.
Yeah, well, I think space begets, like, opportunity to put stuff and accumulate stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's the whole thing about... When I first built this house, it was 400 square feet. It was 420 square feet. And then I had a garage that was 420 square feet, too. Mm-hmm. So that was, like, the whole footprint of the house. And I was trying to carry that, you know, that vision from living on the boat of living small to my house. And I did it well for about 10 years. I lived in 400 square feet, studio, apartment, earth style, kind of kitchen, living room, office, bedroom, all in the same space. But 10 years of that with my lady.
She was in here pretty much the whole time.
Yeah,
she was with you, right?
And she was with me the whole time. And then I was working, too, from home. Yeah. I started working with Surfrider Foundation. And so... all of that time was just like, literally, I was like in this little small space, which just got intense, and I needed some separation. So I built an office space to have a space to work in, and then slowly the relationship demanded more space, as it does the more time we're together. And so, you know, she wanted a master bedroom, and she wanted a closet. We actually had no closet in the house, right?
Okay.
So that's a tough way with a lady like that, and myself, honestly. I probably have as many more clothes than she does, so it was a matter of like, it was time, and so we added on last year, after being here for 11 years, and now we have this additional space, and a bit more than I want, maybe. Yeah. So I have this theory that's like, well, if you bring it into the house, something's got to go out of the house. And so... other than the space that we've had to fill, we try and like get rid of stuff every time we bring something new into the house. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good process. But when I had a garage and no car, I just filled it up with crap. Yeah. And I feel like that's really easy to let yourself do. Yeah. I'm impressed by how organized your garage is, because you have a couple of sheds too, and it's like you could definitely have a whole bunch of broken old lawn chairs.
Yeah. You got to see one of those. Yeah. They found a home too.
They did. Somebody got it? Yeah. Good. You didn't ever move the boat, did you? Did you ever sail the boat?
No, the boat never moved from the end of G-Dock while I was living on it. It was, we could have rigged it to sail it. It didn't have an engine that was running at the time. And so it had a locked up engine, and the thing reeked of diesel. I mean, it was not the most romantic, of, mahogany wood.
Yeah. You're kind of roughing it.
Yeah, it was a roughing it scene. I had no plumbing, or running water. I had a hose that ran in there, and I used that to rig up a kitchen with, and a sink, but I didn't have a flushable toilet on that.
You shit in a bucket?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Shit in a bucket, become intimate. No, I would just pretty much carry it out, sawdust or leaves or whatever the composting material I could find around it. But you become kind of intimate with that stuff, Yeah. This is how much I poop in a week.
Yeah.
And it's a long walk from the end of G-Dock to, disposal. So you're like, I know how much it weighs and everything. I ate a lot this week.
Yeah. Or if you drink too much for a few days in a row or something like that, it gets kind of weird. And that, just geographically is the spot that you were at is basically in Rogue Brewing's backyard. Right?
It is, and it's like the Oregon Coast Aquarium is right there, which is where I worked. Hatfield Marine Science Center, which is like a rich community of marine biologists and like-minded people as me that sort of work in that field. It's a really cool sort of subset of the Newport community.
Yeah.
It's sort of the marine science, ocean-oriented professional community lives around that area. And lo and behold, there is the Rogue Brewery right in the middle of all of that,
Right.
and the marina and stuff. And so I was pretty religious back then, eating like every meal at the Rogue, probably. And for the worst of my health, drinking a lot of beer. I became such a staple that they put a plaque on the seat that I used to sit on.
Oh,
that has
really?
my name on it.
Crazy.
I'm not the only person that has a plaque.
Yeah,
I should
yeah.
say. Like, there's plenty of people, but like, I kind of earned that moniker from of Chaz on the bar for being there for a while.
From just eating every day. Okay. So how long have you been with Kristen?
Yeah, my lady.
Did you meet her while you were on the boat?
Yeah.
How was dating on the boat?
No, I did not meet her on the boat. I met her before. I started dating her on the boat. The boat brought her in.
Oh, did it?
I think so.
She thought it was cool.
I think it was the breakup with her man.
Uh-huh.
So I was seeking her for some time, and then she was with a man, obviously, and I think she knew I liked her, but I was very, very professional, or good, I should say, and not trying to game it.
Right.
Because he lived in San Francisco, and you know, I just knew it was
an opportunity for you to be an asshole.
It was, and I wasn't an asshole, and I knew that it was bound to just fail. Right?
Yeah.
Like, just it was a matter of time, like San Francisco in here, and she's gonna like it here better, and eventually I'll charm her, and that happened.
Yeah.
And she asked me out, actually.
There you go.
I just waited for it, and we've been together for 14 years now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I just, when you said it smelled like diesel, I was like thinking, because, we living in a tiny living space has its limitations to begin with. It's like, I live in a van. Wait, what? When you're talking to somebody you don't know or whatever. And I was sort of like, ooh, you got a spot that smells like diesel and it's like kind of half janky built out or whatever.
Yeah.
But she was down.
She was down.
She
Yeah,
already
I
knew
mean,
you.
she knew me from like a couple years over.
Yeah.
And, it's just a matter of getting to the boat. Like, No, she had known me for a while, but it is true. Like everything, like it was not romance on that boat. Like it was rough. And I loved it. I mean, it was romantic to me just for what it was. Sitting up on the deck was great. But down underneath the deck, like my clothes totally smelled like diesel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all my stuff smelled like diesel.
And what was your job at the time? Over there?
I worked at the aquarium. I was like an educator. So
Okay.
I worked in the public programs department, and I started off working in a classroom teaching kids about marine animals. And, these were like classrooms of kids that would come and visit the aquarium. And I would do outreach to schools and stuff. And I just, over the years, kind of worked through working as an educator into like sort of managing public programs and writing curriculum and developing some of their behind the scenes tours and their overnight program. I developed a really rad program for sleepovers at the aquarium.
Cool.
And they have a tunnel, and I can pack like 40 or 50 kids into the tunnel, and they get to sleep inside this tunnel with a shark swimming over them.
Oh,
at night
nice.
and stuff. It's a pretty rad experience, and it turned out to be a great revenue opportunity for the aquarium too.
Sure.
So it was a really cool program. I loved that program a lot. Yeah, it's one of the coolest things I did there.
That's awesome. Like I did that in middle school in a bowling alley.
Oh yeah.
An aquarium seems way more educational.
Yeah.
Like we watched rated R movies.
Yeah, I would think
Stuck
like
our fingers in bowling balls.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bowling alley sleepover.
Yeah, sharks is way cooler.
Yeah.
So how'd you end up working with? I know you through Surfrider.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk a little bit just sort of about like your advocacy work and the stuff that you've done with them. How'd you end up working for them? Was that straight out of the aquarium?
It kind of was, and out of self-interest as well. And I think I feel like a lot of people get involved with Surfrider for like self-interest reasons, and then once they're involved with Surfrider, it's very selfless. And that was totally it for me. I was looking for other people, like-minded people in the surf community. I was a new surfer in town, and I was just learning how to surf. I was working at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, and two guys came, Marcus Mead and Dave Rebel, and you probably remember one of that. You remember either of those? Yeah. Some of the original Northwest boys came and gave a presentation at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, and their presentation was about water quality and the Blue Water Task Force program, which is kind of the premier, volunteer water quality monitoring program for Surfrider. And they were talking about this water quality monitoring program, and because surfers get sick, and I was like, I have gotten sick like 10 times, and I'm pretty sure it's from surfing, but I was a new surfer, I was new to town, I didn't know anything about it. And at the end of the presentation, I just went up to them, like, what do you think? And they were like, oh, you should test the water. Because at the time, the Federal Beach Act hadn't been passed yet. And so the state of Oregon wasn't testing the water. Nobody was testing the water. And they were like, we'll give you all the tools and resources to do it to help self-organize. And Surfrider kind of gave me that, ability to they helped fund the monitoring. They helped me give sort of the direct action advocacy sort of outline and framework and platform for me to jump off of. And the short of it is that I started a water quality program at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. The youth volunteers were helping me at the aquarium, test water. We did a bit of fundraising, and over the course of a number of years, we found that there was sewer problems, and we were able to identify those. We were able to make sewer corrections with the city of Newport. There's been a long-standing partnership between the Newport chapter and in fact, it led to the founding of the Newport chapter of Surfrider here. So that's kind of how I got involved. I helped found the chapter. I started the Blue Water Task Force program. I ran a campaign essentially out of self-interest because I was getting sick.
Right.
And I was like, oh, they're going to give me some tools and stuff to help kind of figure that out. Yeah. And, I'll never forget when I first took the job with Surfrider, probably 2 years later, and it was Marcus was leaving at that time, the guy who had came and gave the program to the aquarium that got me first interest. He had left, and so his job was opening up. And I remember when I started, like Ed Mozzarella being like, hey, your job is just to run campaigns that make a meaningful difference in other people's lives. It's there's a lot of other stuff you can get hung up in, but just make a meaningful difference. And I was like, wow, that is all I really care about doing. And you could put that under the umbrella of social justice or whatever it is. I just want to make a meaningful difference in somebody else's life. And Surfrider was able to do that for me. And so I've kind of tried, and that's sort of why I've stuck with Surfrider over the years, is to kind of try and keep that value. And that's kind of what gets me off, is kind of helping other people make a big difference in their life, or a difference, even if it's small.
Great. You've sort of blown I feel like you've sort of blown the Oregon Surfrider presence and scene into a much larger thing than it used to be too.
Yeah, and I would say that hasn't come without the support of, Surfrider, one, in keeping staff here. Sure. It's not just myself, but we've been able to have both a field manager and a policy manager. And that's a big investment for Surfrider in our region. Other than California, we don't put a lot of staff in a lot of places, and it's a hard thing for us to do. We were fortunate with some funding here to make that happen. And so that presence, that steady, consistent presence of staff has allowed us to really grow in Oregon. And so when I first started, there weren't any official chapters in Oregon. It was kind of the Oregon chapter, and it was a Portland chapter-ish. But now we have, 7 or 8 chapters in the state. We weren't trying to grow aggressively. We were trying to grow well. The state of Oregon is, other than Portland, it's small, it's rural on the coast. If you're going to depend on people, you're going to depend on the same people. So you can't burn people out. Yeah. You got to go slow. You got to be what you can be. you know? And I think within Surfrider Network, and you look at chapters, there's a lot of like, we want to be like the San Diego chapter, like, but you can't be. You don't, San Diego has as many members within their chapter as we probably have in the state of Oregon.
Right.
They're probably funding staff better than we're funding staff in the state of Oregon. But that's because of the user groups there,
Right.
So
everybody's a beach person. And so
Absolutely.
it's really easy to snag interests, whereas, up here, I would imagine that your membership is probably a lot more green, like,
Absolutely.
in terms of their ethic and stuff. Whereas it's cooler down there just because everybody surfs.
Exactly. Yeah. And we actually probably identify with more people that are not surfers
Right.
in the state of Oregon than we do with people that are surfers. Because surfers in Oregon are individualists. They're not joiners.
Right.
They're rugged individualists, and they really just do not kind of want to be around other people. That's kind of a stereotype, but like, it is kind of a lot of the Oregon ethic is, what I like to say is we're all here because you're not. On the Oregon coast, like that seems to be this sort of mantra of people out here, sort of Jeffersonian, if you will. But we have grown a lot in the state of Oregon. We've done great work. I'm really proud of who we are here, and the work that we've done, and in our chapter network, the volunteers. I get paid, so it's awesome to get paid to do this work. But the people that really deserve the credit are the ones that don't
do
get
it for
paid.
free.
Yeah, they do it at 5:00 after a day of work.
Oh, you touched on something that I've heard, but I haven't personally experienced yet. How do you feel about? You said we're here because you're not.
Yeah,
I feel like, and I have experienced it actually in Northern California, but not so much in Oregon. I've been told that you could sometimes get a bad attitude because of your California license plate up here. And I know that once you get past San Francisco in Northern California, surfing, you kind of need a little bit more permission some of the places from the locals and stuff. The other thing that blows me away is that there can be such a beautiful coastal town that's only got 10,000 people in it. What's at play there?
All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. One, why are there only 10,000 people in a beautiful coastal town like this? The climate. It's not San Diego. It's not 70 degrees and sunny, right? What do we say? It's like, that's off the Richter when it's 70 here. Make it through a couple of winters and we'll see. So one, people are not here because the climate's not here yet. Yet. Right? And I wrote a blog about this, that you would really appreciate. It's called California's Knocking on Oregon's Door, and it's not just the people. And it really is that, our climate's changing. As the climate changes, I think you'll see these towns grow, and we already are. We're in the middle of a big boom right now, and people are buying houses up like crazy. And it's not just California. They're coming from Texas and other places because we're at a latitude and we're in a place where, climate may be more favorable than other places. But you know what? We burned all the way up to the coast last year. So, hellfire climate's coming, baby, wherever you are. And look for the higher latitudes if you can. So one, that's why, though, historically, we haven't had a lot of people here, is because it is brutal in the winter. It can rain for 40 or 50 days straight.
Wow.
Right? No sunshine, and literally rain sideways in your face. So that's, that can be really uncomfortable. That's also, there's a lot there you can enjoy. I mean, people love mushrooming here in that time of year, and it's super green. Everything's beautiful. It just depends on what you can get into. But that's really why you don't see a lot of people here. Now, sharing this space with other people, right? The idea, I think everybody has that sort of NIMBY attitude of once they get something good, scarcity of resource kicks into the back. I mean, that's this lizard brain thing that says,
mine.
Yeah. And it's really ugly, to be honest. It's kind of an ugly behavior. And it's, we all feel it. Like, everybody feels that in some way, shape, or form. The Oregon coastal people are can be very cagey.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that most of the Oregon coast, I wouldn't say it's like heavy localized.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I wouldn't say that there's a lot of scorn for California, no more than anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly since, a lot of these communities, they can hate tourism all they want to, but they would be dead in the water without it.
Sure.
And half the businesses wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can complain about all the people, but their doors would close.
Yeah.
And they did during the pandemic.
It was like nobody can come over here to drink or whatever.
And so I think, it doesn't make it super sustainable to depend on tourism for your economy, but I think it does. There's a recognition here that, like, that's a part of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oregon is changing and growing to better accept that. I think some parts of the coast are doing it better than others.
Mm-hmm.
Central Coast, I think, will blow up faster and have more accepting people faster than, say, the North Coast and the South Coast.
Okay.
South Coast will share that sort of Northern California Jeffersonian spirit, the Wild West, and kind of always just kind of look the hairy eyeball at anybody from out of town, I think. And North Coast kind of there's a special surf spot on the North Coast, and there's some people that like to really localize that. And it's amazing that they've held their ground as long as they have.
What surf spot is this?
The Point in Seaside, yeah. Okay. It's pretty heavily localized. The crew there, the local crew there, they hit it, they run it pretty good. They make it pretty uncomfortable to surf there.
Really?
Yeah, you can get away with surfing there if you mind your P's and Q's and you just stay out of everybody's way, sit on the shoulder, pick your times to go out.
Yeah.
But it's not fun. I mean, it ruins your time when somebody, like, says something snarky at you. I mean, they'll yell at you or whatever.
Have you surfed there?
Yeah. I surfed there, and, they wouldn't consider me a local, and they'd ride me there for sure. And, I mean, I've surfed there for 20 years. But I just pick and choose my days and not very frequent. I don't go when it's big and heavy and everybody wants a piece of it there. And, crowded there is like 10 guys.
Yeah.
10 guys sitting on that peak is crowded, and it's like all the locals. So there is like the Cove, which is a break that's like kind of right next to that. That's kind of softer and friendlier. And, it's like the Cove is kind of a right-hander, and it offers up a little bit of everything. And the Point is like a proper left. But that's probably the most heavily localized spot in Oregon for surf.
Probably ought to go surf there. That's one of the ugliest things for me about surfing is that territorialism. And I mean, I feel like van people specifically can really relate to that, because one of our biggest challenges is not getting fucked with or shunned by like local residents and stuff wherever we're parking.
I think that there's this space between being somebody who's from out of town, who's not a local, and being respectful, right? And there's another place that's like coming with a whole big crew.
Right.
And I think that like somewhere in between is where we have to find some happy mediums. Because I appreciate like my spots too that are not busy. I'm not going to throw rocks at people and yell at them for getting in the water. Yeah. It'll change the way I feel when I'm in the water. And I might have to compete a little bit more for waves. But, that's scarcity of resource.
Yeah. It's an undeniable, it's a factual economic thing that if you want to do something and there's a finite number of people who can do it at once, the more people there are, the less you can do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, what's next? You were telling me that you may or may not stay in the house like super long term.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about traveling or?
I think so. I think we would want to travel. My lady and I have, we've done a lot of time, and she works in natural resources. She works for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and manages the state's marine reserve program, and which is a big lift. And then my job in the policy world has been pretty heavy the past few years for Surfrider, which sounds funny, like heavy job for Surfrider, but I took on some roles for the state of Oregon that kind of were a lot. They were a big lift. And so we're both ready to kind of check out for a little while. And I don't know what that means yet and when that is. It's a sooner timeline for her than me, but I think we're looking at trying to turn this place into a rental property. I'd like to do long-term rental here. I'd like to put somebody up long-term and then have a landing pad for us. We've kind of built it out in a way that we could have a room or the little studio unit and come back here while somebody else was living here. And I don't know, I want to do, I told you my big mission value in life is to make a meaningful difference in other people's lives. That's what will make me happy, I know. And so I can do that in a lot of ways and a lot of places. And, I'm interested in some third world kind of countries. I'm getting out of the US for a little while, potentially while I can, and my health is still about me. So I don't know, man. I think every day and every time I travel, I'm convinced that I could do something completely different that I never knew that I could do. And that's one of the things I love about traveling. I just got back from Montana, and I never thought that I could not live next to the ocean. And I was like, I don't know, I could probably do a few years out here. If I was doing something good and meaningful that focused me. So who knows?
Cool. Well, I guess we'll call it there.
Rad.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for coming in and landing in Newport, dude.
For sure.
All right, guys, we did it. That was episode 73 of From the Van. Look, I really appreciate you listening to From the Van. Thank you so much. If you stuck around this long, that's really great. I just wanted to say one more thing about Charlie. There's something unusual about Charlie. A lot of times, especially nowadays, it's sexy to be involved in advocacy. It's sexy to be involved in minimal living, because those are things that have sort of gotten some media attention, as they should. But Charlie, when he started in Oregon with Surfrider, which is a bottom-up organization, you can't do anything in Surfrider without a groundswell of community involvement and volunteers, but it takes a lot to cultivate them. When he got started in Oregon, it was a bit of a vacuum. And this dude gets up and pushes every day because he wants to. And that's something that really, really is special, and that I admire about him, and something that inspires me, and something that I aspire to every day. And Charlie's being stupid modest. He's a big deal in Oregon. And it was really great, not only to sit down with him for this podcast, but also to hang out with him. So thank you again so much for listening to the podcast. There's going to be another episode that's already lined up, another one that I recorded 6 months ago. It's fantastic. Tune in next week for another episode of From the Van.